Let's move on now to the Atlanta Falcons 2023 season prediction series, where we break down how well we think the Falcons are going to do in each and every single game. But before we do that, if you have not already, hit the subscribe button and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we release new content. Brian and I, we have a goal of getting to 2,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL season. And between now and September 7th, we will be having a bunch more content released, including a season predictions video for every single NFL team. So if you want to see that content and also see the fun season-long competition that Ryan and I will be doing, where we will predict every single NFL game and make videos on the all the games, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notified. And Ryan, let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
If you want to pull up your screen, Ryan and I, we went through and kind of talked and debated about every single NFL game for every single NFL team, and we're going to kind of do a prediction. And really more what this kind of we're trying to portray is really just kind of what the flourish ceiling kind of is for each team. So you'll see there's several ties, and those are games that we think that could be close. Like, so for example, week 1, who really knows what's going to happen with this game with Bryce Young and Carolina? I think the Falcons are definitely going to be favored going into this week, just because there's that more team chemistry several years under the Arthur Smith system. But at the same time, though, who knows? We don't really know how Bryce Young is going to react. We don't know how this defense for the Falcons is going to be, and they spent a lot of money on it. So we'll just kind of go through each game. But what I want to kind of start out with, Ryan, is I think this actually is a great depiction to me on where I think the Falcons kind of line up in the NFL. We have them honestly kind of being around 11, 10 wins, and there's 3 ties, so 3 games that could potentially they could be technically 14-3. They could also then be 11-6, 10-7 type area. I think that's kind of a good range for them. And the biggest reason for that is look at their losing record. We believe that there's a little glitch actually in the software that's actually 10 wins, 0 losses, and 3 ties. So three games against these losing teams that will be close. But then look right next to that versus playoff teams, 0-3-2. I think that is clear indication. As you can see right here, I think the Lions are better than the Falcons. I think they just have more overall upside. I think the Jags are better than the Falcons, and that game will be in London. Also, then, too, if you scroll down, they're playing the Jets as well in New York, and I think that's going to be a tough game, especially, too, with Rodgers. Now, Week 13, he'll probably be a full expert on that offense. But if you look at the rest of the schedule for the Falcons, very easy schedule. Very easy schedule. Games against the Colts. They play the Bucs twice. They play the Panthers and Saints twice. I think that they can do well against both of them. Play against the Cardinals, that's a win. I think that they're going to be better than the Vikings. They should have beat the Commanders last year. They should beat the Texans. So it's a very easy schedule, especially in that middle part of the season. And that's where, to me, just kind of looking at their schedule, especially as a Falcons fan, a lot of optimism as well. Very exciting with what they did in free agency and kind of the rebuilding of this team. And then I think they're kind of getting gifted with a very easy schedule.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you look at this and they start off Bryce Young, very first NFL start. Then they go to Green Bay. Jordan Love's, I think, third or fourth ever NFL game. I think his 3rd start. So that's going to be interesting. And then they do have a tough stretch here in the beginning, but then they get to come right back, play Houston, and then the Commanders, and then the Buccaneers, who I don't think are going to be very good. So I think at worst, you guys will probably only have one multi-game losing skid throughout the year. Because every time you have a hard opponent, like you play the Jets, you come right back, you play Tampa Bay at home. And so I think that's really interesting. I do want to point out, we have this game marked as a tie, the Falcons at Chicago. I actually think Chicago is going to be vying for a wild card spot, especially in a weaker NFC. And that game, I think, could be really close. Also, you have a dome team in Atlanta that is going to be traveling to Chicago in early January, which is always a really tough matchup. I will say the Falcons are built to play cold weather football, it looks like. So that'll be really interesting to see. And then Week 18 matchups, you never know kind of with the kind of how those matchups play out. Always division games. The Saints always seem to play the Falcons tough.
Well, and that's with that rivalry game going to the Superdome. I mean, that's just always just a tough place to go and play, even if the Saints are awful. Shoot, even then when the Saints come to Atlanta, when Atlanta's sucked the past couple of years, they've been tough games. And so even in Drew Brees' final year, they should have kicked the crap out of us, and for some reason it was close. So that's where it's tough to see, and that's where it's tough to gauge. because it's just you're going kind of based off the optimism, especially too here. I mean, the NFC, there are definitely more worse teams like the Bucs. I think the Falcons should beat the Bucs pretty handily this year. And luckily too, we have the AFC South, which they contain just a couple of the poor AFC teams as a whole, because
they contain the only weak AFC teams.
Honestly, yeah, that's a fair point. The only weak AFC team. So I also too, just with my overall expectations as a Falcons fan, I think like we need to win the division this year. This division is very weak. The Panthers are rebuilding. The Saints should be rebuilding, but I think that they are going to be mediocre at best, just kind of like last year. Bucs are about to start rebuilding. I think Baker Mayfield's not going to be the answer, and I think that they lost too much. And then at the same time, they're also getting older in some of their more improved. They're getting older in their strengths, so to say, like in the receiver position with Mike Evans, for example. So I think the Falcons have the most optimism. It's just going to be how do they play against the few playoff teams that are on their schedule, like the Lions, like the Jags. I think they can compete with them, but I think at the end of the day, I just think they're a little bit behind where they are, like where those teams are at on their level.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also agree that I think if the Falcons are going to win the division, this is the year for them to do it, because the rest of this division is going to be catching up. I think the Falcons, they've invested a lot in this team in terms of Caleb Aguirre and then who's the left guard?
Chris Lindstrom.
Yeah, Chris Lindstrom. I kept wanting to say Christian Watson, but that
Chris Lindstrom's the right guard. They drafted Matthew Bergeron. He's going to be the left guard.
Yeah.
Or should be the left guard, unless they switch.
And then Bijan Robinson, I think, doesn't put a time limit on how long the Falcons can be successful, but he doesn't have the longevity of like drafting a wide receiver per se, because he is a running back. So it's going to be interesting to see. I really like the team the Falcons have assembled, and I'm interested to see what they're able to do in 2023.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what you think the Falcons record is going to be in 2023. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.